this works this time. All right. Hello, everybody. I'm hoping I can stay on screen for more than 2 seconds this time. It is January 21st, 2021. It has been 2 weeks since the ending of the third season of Star Trek Discovery, and we're here to break it all down here for a special deep dive episode. I want to bring in first one of the two co-hosts on this podcast. We have Adam Woodward. How are you doing tonight, Adam?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk about Discovery more. Also bringing in the other co-host, we have Michael Chan. How are you doing tonight, Michael?
Hey, good. Yourself?
Doing very well, and I'm excited to talk more Discovery. But we have 3 special guests in the queue right now, all waiting to kind of talk about this season. We're going to kind of go through it all. We're going to talk about the characters. We're going to talk about the plot lines. We're going to talk about where this show maybe is going next and what did they all think of it. And so I'm excited to get into this. First one I'll bring in tonight. It will be someone who we've already had on this season of the podcast, in Mike O'Connor, who filled in 1 week when Michael Chan here couldn't attend.
Thank
Mike,
you very much for that.
Welcome to tonight's podcast. Job.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, it was a fun filling in for Michael, and I'm glad to be back and enjoying this recap with you guys. It's awesome.
Great way to spend New Year's Eve.
It was an exciting New Year's Eve.
Now, Mike, I'm trying to recall which episode it was. If you remember which episode it was you were on, was it Su'Kal? Or
you know what?
It was episode 12.
Yeah, I remember the number, but
that was
for the 3-parters.
Right. Yeah,
it was the penultimate episode. Okay, of course. And so we did catch up with you, or we got to talk to you at that time, but we didn't speak to you after the finale. So and after having digested the season for a little bit of time, how are you feeling overall about the third season of Discovery?
Well, I got to say, when I was on, I was a little bit worried about how they were going to wrap it up and get right to the finish line, given that we only had a couple of episodes left. The whole season was leading up, I felt like, to the burn, and we got Su'Kal and we figured that out. And I got to say, they really tied together a bunch of the storylines that I was worried about. In the end, I got to see a little bit more of Starfleet in action in the 29th century, or whichever century we're in at this point.
I think we're in the 32nd.
32nd. Okay, I'm 300 years behind, but. It was, I really liked the way they capped off the season, kind of brought everything together. I think we'll get into some of the more explicit details as we go along, but really cool. Some of the throwbacks they had all through the season with the Guardian of Forever and the Mirror Universe. And we got to see some really good character growth from some characters that we hadn't seen a lot of before. So yeah, I was very pleased with the whole season and on whole. And really, I think we're now leading into the 32nd century and ready to see where Discovery is going to take us.
Okay, great. Okay, I want to get to other guests just as introducing everybody. So thanks, Mike. And we'll just take you down for a second here. And bringing in next from a Wednesday night's original series recaps and several other things we do here, including Star Trek Radio Theater and some other great podcasts. We have Jody Simpson. How are you doing tonight, Jody?
Hey, Jody.
I'm doing good. I hope everybody else is.
Yep.
Thank you. That's great. Long time no talk. It's been since our original series last night. But
it's been like 60 years, 70 years, somewhere in there.
Now, Jody. Now we've been on a long road together on Star Trek Discovery.
Getting from there to here.
Getting from there to here, if you will, because we've been following this kind of since it aired, because you and I have known each other the whole time the show's been on, when the premiere happened, and
maybe even a little longer.
And I can't recall if you were on any of the earlier season 1, season 2 podcasts we did, but
I was not.
I as I recall, maybe you were like out on the show.
No, there was like a note at my house, and it's like, Jody, we don't want you. Signed, Dave XOXO. So I just never showed up.
Oh, okay, right. I can't get all this straight. So
I'm kidding.
So I'd say you were kind of out on the show, but I was kind of saying, season 3 is feeling better, because I was very much down on the show after season 2.
You and Adam actually both provoked me to watch it again.
Yeah, we were kind of saying, give it a shot. So we got you going, and you were eventually catching up with us as we were going. You're saying when you get to the end of season 3, I want to share my thoughts. So
Yes,
here we are.
All right.
Let's what are you thinking about it?
I got a lot of thoughts, Dave.
3 pages worth, Dave. 3 pages.
At least 3 pages worth of notes here. Obviously, this is the intro part, so I'm not going to get too hard into it. It's interesting as a long-term Star Trek fan, and I can definitely say that for sure. It's not my favorite series for sure. It's certainly not my least favorite, but the biggest problem that I have really with this show, there's 2 main problems. It's direction, which I know a lot of you guys have already just mentioned, and also just the characters themselves, which I'm sure we're going to deep dive in a little bit more. But overall, I would say it's entertaining to a degree, but it's definitely not the best that they could have been doing. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Room for improvement, you're saying?
Yeah, I don't want to get into my rants until later on. So,
but you're saying that's kind of
keep
like
your intro clean.
Okay. Anything, Adam, Michael? Did you want to touch on anything there before we bring in Kevin?
No, let's bring in Kevin. Other than Adam has a nice beard. I haven't seen that before. I like it. You're welcome.
COVID lockdown beard.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, Jody, we'll bring you back in just a few minutes. Bringing in next Kevin Millard from Star Trek Radio Theater and the Star Trek movie rewatch podcast from early in 2020, Star Trek Picard podcast, numerous Live Long in podcasts. And Kevin,
yeah,
even more so than Jody, I'd say you were out on this show very much so.
Yes.
You were saying I will never watch that again. You had a number of grievances with it, but you said I will watch Dave. I will watch season 3, and I will be on this podcast, and I will give you my opinion. Here we are.
Yeah.
So I guess my question has to be: has your opinion of this show changed?
A little, just a little, though. Season 3, it's an improvement for sure. I hated Burnham in the first season. Just so everybody knows, I haven't really seen the second season because I watched a couple episodes and I hated it. It was just not good. I didn't like Saru in the first season, but in this season, I like both those characters. They're 2 of my favorite characters in this season. She smiles more. She's happier. There's joy to her life again, and I like that. I'm a bit bipolar with the show, though. I like all the world building stuff, but pretty much all the other characters drive me crazy. I can't stand them. They don't seem
any of them.
Not really. They don't seem like a cohesive crew. For one, they're always off, kind of doing their own thing, and it's all conflict. The original sort of ones, you were kind of watching people doing their jobs and making relationships, and in this show, it's all epic, and it's just this. Everything is conflict. Anything I learn about a character, they're also firing a phaser or kicking someone in the stomach. It's just too much. There's no.
Well, I think that's famously what has been the conflict, if you will, for Star Trek writers, because Gene Roddenberry, while he was still alive, would always tell the writers on Star Trek, the original series and the Next Generation, there's no conflict in the 24th century or the 23rd century. Humans have evolved beyond this. We're not petty anymore. And all of his writers would go, then how am I going to write a story without any kind of conflict or any kind of issues? And Gene Roddenberry's answer to that was that they were always external. They were coming from aliens or they were coming from forces beyond. But
I have to say, though, I am very hopeful and will be watching season 4. The way they left it, I think I'd like to know. I like the world that they're building. I like the rebuilding of the Federation, and that the Federation, like when they found the Federation, I was really worried they were going to make the Federation evil, and they didn't. And I thought that was great.
They were flirting. It felt like they were flirting with it in parts of the season.
And then So I'd like to see them rebuild the Federation, and I'd like to see what happened to the other races in the Alpha Quadrant, which I think is what they're setting up to do with Discovery delivering dilithium to all these planets and trying to rebuild the Federation. I'm really excited for season 4. I think season 3 was a good setup for it. I hope they don't screw it up.
And Kevin, you make no apologies that you are not a fan of prequels.
I am not a fan of prequels, generally. There's probably a few good ones, but no, I don't feel like they've been done well.
And that was kind of the shift of season 3, that Discovery stopped being a prequel and became a sequel.
Yes.
It reinvented itself in this season. And the world.
That's what I remember. I sent you that message after watching the first episode. I said, this is where it should have started. Like, we should have had maybe 2 episodes about how they got there, sort of like Voyager did with the caretaker, and then moved into this story.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would not disagree, but Adam, Michael, feel free to go ahead and share your thoughts.
I do wish this is where it started, but it isn't. And what's done is done. Yep. And I felt that, for example, Kevin, you talk about this conflict within the crew itself. Personally, I had no problem with that, because one of the things they had to do with this season is fix all the problems that they created in the first 2 seasons, one of which is that the crew wasn't cohesive to begin with. You have 2 seasons of a basically incohesive crew that keeps changing. People keep changing in this crew, right? Yes. Changing leaders, changing positions, people die. So now when you bring the show to where we kind of wish it started, they still have to make it so that by season 4 you have something that is more akin to what we're used to, which is a cohesive crew, which I felt is what they did with season 3.
And that's what I'm really hopeful for. I hope that's what they do. I really liked the first time I felt like they were even remotely a cohesive crew was the last scene when they're all in the new uniforms and you see the wide angle of the bridge. And okay, now the show can start, maybe. Like,
well, I think that maybe that it's almost like a 3-season pilot instead of like a traditional 2-parter. Your point here. Let's bring in back Jody and Mike. I'm just gonna.
Sorry, Dave. Can I just jump in?
Yeah.
Hey, Kevin. Nice to meet you. I thought you're.
Oh, have you never met? Have you never met each other? I apologize.
I've seen you on the recreations, but I haven't met you. So nice to meet you.
You too.
I thought you were pretty thoughtful in your opening here. I did like season 2, parts of it. I really like Captain Pike. I like the Enterprise coming back, but this season for me, if I could just, the 3 of us talked about it many times, is it became that series that I've looked forward to every week. Every Thursday night. It's been a long time since I had something to, an episode or a show that I wanted to watch so badly, and that, for me, this was that show. It's been a long time, so. Just wanted to bring that back before we get going.
It's like the next generation now.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, we'll leave but let's bring back in Jody and Mike. And we'll leave Adam up for the moment. So bringing you guys in and just to talk about this season. So I think there's quite a few things to talk about. Maybe we'll start with do you guys want to start with the good parts of the show, the main discussion threads, or we can start with the criticisms, because I do have some notes there.
The criticisms for me are going to be longer than everybody else, I'm sure. So
we can maybe speak more to the individual items.
Maybe that's a better idea. Yeah.
So okay, let's talk about just how this season starts and how it begins and where it goes from there. So the whole thing is carrying over from season 2. My first question is for Kevin, because he didn't really watch any of season 2.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't.
How much? And okay, either whoever wants to take this question.
No. I'm just saying.
Did it matter? How much did that affect or impede your viewing of this season?
I don't feel like it did at all. They do a pretty good job of explaining what they need to explain in season 3. I didn't feel like I missed anything.
Yeah,
I was never confused.
I would agree with that for the most part. The suit obviously being the only thing that really, if you didn't watch season 2, you have no idea what's going on. I don't even think they really explained it that well, but you kind of got a gist of it from like the recreation stuff that they did ahead of that. But it's, and this is, to me, and somebody, I think it was Kevin actually that mentioned that, that the show started. The third season just kind of started from there, and that's kind of where he would have liked to see it start. I can't disagree with him. It's the first 2 seasons. I only saw part of the first season. I've done a recap of the first season and then a recap of the second season. So I could kind of understand what's going on, but I didn't watch all the episodes at all. It definitely starts as it kind of should, I think. I definitely watched the first 6 episodes of the first season, and oh wow, that was just terrible. I don't think anybody here is going to really argue too hard about that, but I just think overall yeah, I would agree with Kevin as well. It starts off to the point where you kind of don't really need to know much. Like the recap, I felt when I watched the season 2 recap, the season 2 recap didn't tell me anything I didn't need to know. Like I already kind of got it. So yeah, I agree with him on that.
Okay, and Mike, you were, coming, you've been following maybe more along as we've been going. What in terms of like just how this season, what was your feeling about? Did this show even need to reinvent itself when coming out of season 2? Was that necessary? Like, I think we've come to this consensus it was a good thing, but was it the right thing in the first place?
I think the further along we got into this season, the more excited I was about it, almost feeling like a reboot. I did enjoy seeing Captain Pike and exploring that a little bit in season 2. Did they pull it off? Well, we'll see, I think, with Strange New Worlds and where that goes. But to jump 1,000 years into the future, you've got a Federation in shambles. This whole crew's got to get back to wherever Starfleet is. I really did feel as the season progressed, the reboot really did make sense. And I think it was interesting to get a different take on what Star Trek could be in the future. They got a lot of gaps to fill in as far as the history goes. And I think they can go a lot of different places with 1,000 years worth of untold stories. But I'm really happy to see some of the new technology changes. It really feels a little bit more futuristic. And I didn't mind some of the conflict because, as much as Gene Roddenberry's vision was there to be kind of a utopian society, we peeked behind the screen a little bit. I never thought when I was a kid growing up watching Star Trek that the replicators were using human waste to make food. I just kind of thought they materialized stuff out of nowhere. And now that I know, it makes a little bit more sense. And so I think I would have loved to seen a little bit more about Starfleet and seen the rebuild a little bit sooner into the series. And I really felt like they were almost lost for the whole 12 episodes or so, and not even knowing whether Starfleet was going to be evil or were they going to be the good guys. Was the Admiral on our side, Admiral Vance, or was he creeping in the shadows and not telling us everything? I think the reboot made sense the more we got into it, and I got along a lot better with it as the season went on.
Okay, I'm going to come back on screen for just a minute here. I just want going over to Kevin. Mm-hmm. Kevin, I want to talk about the burn. And what your thoughts on this as a plot line and sort of how it set up this 32nd century version.
I like the burn. I like the idea of the burn. I don't like at all how they resolved it. Like some kid crying about his mother burned all the lithium in the world or in the universe. Come on, you can do better than that. But as a concept, I really like it. I like that there's an energy scarcity. Whereas in all the other Star Treks, there seems to be it seems to be limitless, right? Unless you want to make blankets for Bajorans, all the energy is limitless in the world.
Apparently.
And so I like that idea. I like the idea that they can't communicate, that subspace is basically gone. I think it's all really interesting.
Yeah, Jody, what the fall of the Federation, the burn, this whole dystopian post-burn world, and so it's the two things. What did you think of that? And then I guess how they ultimately resolved it with Sukal.
I'll make it very easy on that point. Kevin's absolutely correct on this. The explanation for the burn is terrible. I think they could have easily come up with something better than this. I think this was just a plot device more than anything for getting rid of characters. I think that's really what they were trying to do here. This is clearly part of a rewrite, because I'm almost positive this isn't what they came up with the first time. The other thing I also think is funny is the short form for this show is STD, and they're dealing with a burn. I think that's fucking hilarious. Now, past that, and I will say that joke is stolen. I did get it from somebody else. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Steve Shivs, but I could be wrong. As for what's that?
I heard that joke as well.
Have you heard that joke? Okay, so you must have watched the same video I did. It's the show itself, and getting quickly back to the point I think actually Mike was making, where it's almost like a Lost in Space type scenario. This is really where they should have just started. Like, why do I need like all of this backstory for the last 2 seasons? It really gave me nothing other than Space Messiah Jesus, Michael Burnham, which is a whole other ball of wax, which I'm sure we'll get into eventually when we start talking about the characters. Overall, I think the show is definitely improving, but when you shine an old car, it still is an old car. And at this point, we're 3 seasons in. I have enjoyed the last season. Absolutely. I enjoyed even 2 episodes of it better than the entire watch I've seen of the first season. And obviously I haven't followed it as well as everybody else has on the panel here, I think, with the exception of maybe Kevin. But overall, it's the burn is great. I love the concept of the burn. I thought that was fantastic. And as Kevin pointed out, the lack of resources is really one of the key plot points really in this future world. And I liked how they started up with the Federation, how they kind of started portraying it as being kind of like, ooh, maybe they are evil. I was hoping they would go a little bit farther with it, but they didn't really. They kind of held it back a little bit. But I will say Vance is probably my favorite character of the entire season, though. So
yeah. Well, there's some interesting new secondary characters, but before we talk about them and why, I can't put 6 in. That's why. Sorry, I can't put a picture up because I can't put a picture up. Here, I'm gonna actually. I feel bad. I haven't had Michael here on screen for a bit, so I'm gonna bring in Michael.
I gotta get Adam too.
Yeah. Well, it's a rotate. There's 6 of us.
I get you.
So, just on. Okay, we talked about the burn and this kind of what's the state of the Federation or the state of the galaxy, if you will, at this time. And so, outside that, we get a couple things. We see that there's this new group called the Emerald Chain, that's made up of Orions and
Andorians.
Yeah.
Andorians. They're like a new rival to the Federation, we learn in this season. What do you guys think of that? And sort of outside of maybe like the characters themselves, just them as an entity.
The name's dumb, but I think the concept is neat.
I love that they're capitalists too. Like they're a chain of mercenaries. They're a federation of not mercenaries, but they're a chain of
mercantiles.
Merchants, yeah.
And so that's completely the opposite to what we've seen. We saw a little bit of the Ferengi, but that wasn't a major force in previous series. And I think this was pretty cool to set up that capitalist idea too, and especially in a time of scarcity. So,
but as them, and just like them as sort of an antagonist too is kind of and how Osira ultimately tries to broker this peace, but it fails. Kevin? What did you think of that?
I liked it. I liked that whole part. I liked Osira. I thought she was a good villain. And I like the idea, like Michael was saying. I like the idea of it being a capitalist. It's almost like capitalists against socialists, like that old, like the Federation is all for the betterment of mankind, and the Emerald Chain is all about money.
Am I moving or am I just like solid?
You're solid.
Your face.
Yeah, you're like
Yeah, you're looking face, right?
Here, I'll take you off screen for a minute.
What's going on? Yeah.
So we can hear you.
To you guys, did it make sense? There's one major entity that comes out of the burn. Like, I had thought about this. I'm like, would there be only one massive empire, would there be more than one, or have we just not seen what other massive empires exist outside of the Emerald Chain because of the characters we're following encountering the Emerald Chain? Because that's something I was wondering about. It's like, could this be literally it, or are they going to just?
We still haven't seen the Klingons. We don't know what's going on.
Well,
with
that's
them.
what I was wondering, because I was like, we haven't seen the Klingons and Cardassians.
Ferengi,
oh yeah, you're right. No Ferengis. So I'm like, what? Like,
I think that's.
Yeah. Sorry.
I think that's one of the things that kind of bugged me about this season is I did feel like we were skimming a lot. Like even Osira, I didn't know she was the leader of the Emerald Chain truly until she started trying to broker that peace deal. Like exactly.
I don't think that she can't be the only one. Like there's got to be the Emerald Chain can't be over now. I just can't believe that's it. They're going to disband.
Yeah.
So who's in control? Who's she taking her orders from? There's got to be somebody else.
That's right. And I felt like we never even really dived into that more than just it's Osira. She's got, a whole crew of people behind her. They're big bad, but what are they? Towards the end, we saw a little bit more. Maybe they're not so bad. Well, I don't know.
And this is what I'm excited for season 4 for. I think that's what they're going to do. I think we're going to rediscover the Alpha Quadrant and see what's happened to all of these races that we've known from before.
Yeah, well, and where I always presumed that I'll come back just for a second. Sorry. So where I always presumed things were going was that they would eventually start exploring new galaxies, right? And leave their own galaxy and go somewhere else. But that hasn't happened. Like, or maybe it did happen, and there was all the burn happened, and it just set things so far back that they're kind of almost into pre-warp times here. It set them back almost more than 1,000 years in terms of, everything's so fragmented. The Federation's fragmented. The contact between the sectors. I watched the episode 1 again tonight, and she's like, I can only see these sectors. She's like, you can't see all these sectors? It was just that all the long range communication. So rebuilding this universe or this galaxy is sort of step one, but I gotta think that maybe they're going to maybe not just new galaxies, but new planes of existence or other things that are
and I've been curious. Sorry, I'm not on screen, but I've been curious whether the Borg are going to come back. I'd love to see some kind of emergence of those, and but there's a lot of questions, and man, this series can go now any direction. It's going to be good,
especially with the spore drive. I mean, really, you can theoretically jump galaxies with that spore drive, right? So
technically,
you know what would be interesting to do with the Borg is without unlimited energy, they couldn't assimilate anymore. We see an evolution of the Borg rather than assimilation. That could be interesting.
That could be very interesting. Yep.
And the other thing is when they bring back the Klingons, and they will, what are they going to look like? Like, please don't.
They gotta have hair. They gotta have hair and beards. Like, bring that back.
Yeah.
Hair, beards, and not talons for fingers.
Nope.
Just normal looking fingers will do, please. And thank you.
ever.
Yeah,
So,
it was their biggest.
It's almost
blunder.
as bad as what was it, Into Darkness, where they have the ones that are all pierced.
I liked that Klingon makeup.
That is way better.
And I didn't even like it that much.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about the Emerald Chain. The Vulcan Romulan reunification was also a big headline from this season. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that. And they even brought some Leonard Nimoy archive footage in for the episode Unification 3.
Stop rolling your eyes.
Jody shaking his head.
Let's start with Jody. Jody, what did you think of the whole Vulcan Romulan reunification? Navarre, it's not even Vulcan anymore.
So here's the quick pitch meeting that they did for this. Okay, we're gonna use the same name of another episode again, and we're going to do some fan service, and we're gonna show a goddamn hologram of Nimoy again.
And it worked. It worked.
This already happen? This has already happened in a movie or something a couple times.
Oh my god, it was so good.
Oh my god,
dude, it was
this
so
is a Spock circle jerk if I ever saw one. This is oh, I'm sorry. Like you know what? No offense to any of you guys, and honestly, I don't mean any offense.
You're not taking anything offense. I just think you're wrong.
That's fine. You can always think I'm wrong.
Washing our mouths of the Spock from the last 2 seasons. That's how I saw it. Come on.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, I didn't have to experience that, so I guess maybe that does make sense, Michael. I could agree with you on that. But this is a fan service thing, true and true. It didn't really add anything to this. It just said, "Oh, by the way, Space Jesus, that's her brother or whatever." It's like, oh, come on. Like,
I really like the idea of the reunification. I thought that was interesting. That was unexpected.
Yeah.
But the Spock thing, yeah. I want them now to leave Spock in the past. Can we just leave him in the past now?
He's been dead for a while. Let's just move on.
I'm pretty sure that's what they were doing, though.
Yeah.
They already did this thing.
Here's Spock. Now let's move on. That's what I got from it.
That's our hope. That's what I think that's what I'm kind of on the same page.
Anybody want to put a bet on if
Mike,
I'm going to see Nimoy in the 4th season?
They better.
Anyone want to take a bet?
I will.
Because I'm telling you right now, I'll win.
Disappointed.
It's going to happen.
You know what? If it's Burnham taking a look at her memory pad and kind of going, oh yeah, that's right, I have a brother. But I feel like they did close the book at this with the just reunifying the two, and that was his dream, right? So okay, let's put it to bed.
All right.
She closes the books and puts the book to bed.
Oh yes.
I'm here all week, everybody. Okay.
Drop that mic, Dave. Drop that mic.
Yeah, okay. What about the whole thing with the Vulcan Romulan, this new unified Vulcan Romulan people sort of being at odds with the Federation, and not even just them, but also Earth is at odds with the Federation too. Earth's the planet we live on. Where humans come from.
That's a good recap.
of the original Federation founding members, those being Earth, Vulcan, Andoria, and whatever planet the Tellarites live on. Tellar, I would imagine. They at least 3 of them have left the Federation. Which was but humans, there are still humans in the Federation. And so I guess what is the Federation anymore to you guys in this current season 3 world? What is it exactly? Is it like a fledgling state? Is it barely holding on? Is it what? I'm a little bit unclear as to its relative strength.
I think when you're reintroduced to the Starfleet officer who was on that lonely outpost in the very first episode, waking up, going to work, doing his thing, searching for signals and staring at a screen for days on end. I felt like that was kind of where the Federation was when we picked it up. I think by the end we had a little bit more of a cohesive understanding of what it was, but I'm still not convinced they haven't done anything untowards now that they've been trying to recover for the past couple hundred years since the burn. So
but don't you think that the crew of the Discovery has like reinvented this, like re-inspired people and say, I want to be part of this again. I mean, because they see all this energy that they've lived in the Federation at its heyday. These guys haven't, and I think they just got them excited. And what could it be if we reunited and get things going again? So, yes, it's decline for sure, but now they have a reason to, an ability to reunite. Sorry, Jody, you might talk again.
And I do want to just I think we can we talked about some of the bigger plot lines or threads, but then I think everything else I have kind of to go through next is kind of a little more character specific, and they tried to go out of their way to do more character development to try to build a family here. I'm getting some mixed reviews on that. Kevin said that they don't feel like a crew maybe in the same way that like the Next Gen crew does or other crews. And is that maybe a leadership thing? And I think Michael Burnham's the first character I kind of really want to talk about because she is the lead of the show. This is Sonequa Martin Green's show, but this whole season is also her and Saru in sort of this sharing of the leadership role. He's the captain, but she's still the lead of the show and everything else. And her whole arc over the season, was it satisfying? Does it give us hope? Or is that hope you? That hope is you. That's what they told us in both the first and last episodes, Jody. You called her Space Jesus a few times tonight already.
Well, that's essentially how she's written. Okay, like this isn't me. Okay, I'm not the guy that's made this up. She is literally Space Jesus. She falls from the sky. Like, come on. Like she's the new hope. She's the Luke Skywalker of this franchise at this point. Which and I'm not saying that in a flattering way. The character development, like you mentioned about how they tried to do some more character development, I believe they tried being the key word here. I don't think there really was a lot of very useful character development. I can never remember the girl's name because she's that irrelevant. The one that's got the like fake eye and shit like that.
Detmer.
Yeah, Debner. Is it Debner? Debner,
yeah.
Detmer. Okay. Anyway, I'm probably butchering her name. They even gave us an entire like arc for her of like her trauma and stuff like that, which is interesting because we don't get to see a lot of trauma in Star Trek when it comes to the crew people. With all the different series that we've seen some trauma, like for instance, 7 and 9 having some trauma, various others, of course, Barclay being another person that had some trauma as well. Even though I don't like that character, but anyway, I just think when it comes to character development, I think they focused on a couple too many key things and then just left like the whole Wiseman thing. It's silly. It's silly, even though I like the character. I love her character, but by the end of the season, you're just like, I don't even care anymore. Like, I just don't care. Like, throw it out of an airlock, it's fine. But it's and obviously Saru and that whole plot and storyline. I'm with Kevin on this whole cohesion thing. There's no cohesion at all. It's almost like they all work on different starships and they're talking once in a while to each other. Like it's almost like they're branching. Like this should have just been a space station. It would have made more sense. They're working at this galactic space station. Have any of you guys ever seen the movie Titan AE?
Oh,
No.
I have not.
Okay. Yeah. Not a great movie, but interesting premise, which is essentially Earth is screwed and then it ends up getting attacked or whatever, and there's only some humans left over. Okay, and then they all kind of group together and stuff like that. This is exactly the same idea for me. It's literally like the Federation is just a fracture of what they are, which makes sense. And you know what? I like it. I like the idea of that. I want to see a more negative Star Trek. I want to see the Star Trek that isn't all fantasy and fairy tales. It's the one that's more gritty,
like a darker, grittier.
Yeah,
Star Trek.
and I'm totally down with that. But as for character development, which obviously is the main point, I think we still lacked. It was obviously what's her name, the Trill one that's got the Trill in her.
Oh,
Adira. Adira is a perfect example. I think out of everybody, Adira is probably one of the best things to look at in the entire when you deal with storyline and stuff, because there's obviously trauma there as well and stuff like that. And trauma is a big thing in this season. Trauma seems to be kind of like the key point here. It's like if this was Sesame Street, it'd be like, this is brought to you by trauma. You know, it's one of those things. But anyway,
yeah. Okay. Michael Burnham. Was her arc satisfying for you this season? Has she earned those pips? Has she earned those captain pips?
no.
I think they tried to go there. They tried to create an arc, but they also telegraphed almost every move. You knew she was going to get in trouble for breaking the rules. You knew she was going to get demoted.
But Mike, to be fair, that is the template of almost every episode in this season. Somebody tells Burnham she can't do something, she then does it anyway.
Yep.
And there's barely a consequence.
And that's why I think it was a little too telegraphed, right? Like, we saw her cry quite a bit. You kind of could tell when she was gonna have an emotional moment, and I would have liked to have seen that from some of the other characters as well. I think even Saru. It was interesting to see him it was a mystery to see him go off with Sukal at the end.
Yeah.
And I think they could have built that up a little bit more. You know, Saru being a new captain, he could have struggled a little bit more. I think it was an interesting.
You could have thought some moments where he was like, breaking down. He was like, shit, I got all this on my shoulders now, we don't really know if that's how his species deals with things, but it'd be interesting to see that.
Yeah, and I thought it was. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were. If you finish your thought.
Well, I was thinking at the beginning of the episode, beginning of the series, when he was helped out by the AI and given a few pointers to how to kind of rally the crew, and then all of a sudden he was captain, and it was good. Saru had it locked and stocked. Away I go. Done.
I totally agree with that.
Right, because there's that whole moment where him and Michael look at each other, and it can go. It's almost like a coin flip between the two of them, because really they're both equally qualified for the job in terms of their experience. Although Saru has more credibility because of, Michael Burnham is a war criminal. Although she got a pardon, so I guess she's okay. But it's
Trump must have been running it.
But I was going to go to Kevin with my next question, which is you can also, if you feel like Michael Burnham's a good character, you can whatever you want to add to that. But what I'm mostly wondering is was it a failed experiment trying to make not the captain the main character of the show, and then this is the response to that is ultimately to make Michael Burnham
no. The problem was constantly playing musical chairs with the captain's chair. That was the problem. I think it's a mistake now to put Burnham in the captain's seat. I think she's a better commander. I think Saru was starting to become an excellent captain, and now he's gone.
Yep.
And I think that's a mistake. And I like Burnham. I didn't like her in the first season. I hated all the conflict. Everybody hated her. She had a big chip on her shoulder. It's very refreshing in this third season. She's just a normal person with normal emotions, and she's talking to people, and it's very refreshing. But I don't think I'm going to like her as captain.
Okay. Some harsh words for the Michael Burnham character, although I feel like it's not necessarily the acting, or is it
at all?
It's not the acting.
No, she pulled it off. Yeah.
I agree. She's a very fine actress. I've seen her in Walking Dead and some various other things that she's done. And I think she's decent enough as an actress. I think it's the content. I don't think it's her. I think it's what they're telling her to do.
I think you guys are a little hard on her and the storyline. I mean, there's some things about that she's thrown into in the Giorgio relationship too with her and I didn't really like that of this season. That was one of my problems with is Giorgio. She's okay, and I'm glad she's gone. but it just felt she was sort of in the back drawer, and they're trying to find a place for her. And then finally they dealt with it with that mirror episode. And that was great. That episode was fantastic to me.
Yeah.
And then she's gone. They dealt with it. And now I hope she stays gone, honestly. But I found that relationship, they were trying to find a place for JoJo, and Michael was the conduit for that, because, she's a mother character and her friend or whatever it was, but she had to keep that going. I didn't like it. I didn't like that storyline at all.
That was tough to be truly believable too, because JoJo was from the Mirror Universe. We know she had a connection to Mirror Burnham. Burnham had a connection to the original JoJo, but that was also, a long time ago. She died season 1, right? Episode 2, 3, something like that. So yeah, I always found that a little bit awkward. They were trying too hard to be best friends or build that mother-daughter relationship.
She was really Burnham's sidekick through the entire season, for the most part. Like, there was obviously a couple episodes where that wasn't true, but she was kind of the sidekick. And I think when you have a character like Giorgio, it's very overpowering to have her as the sidekick, because literally the minute she starts doing something, you're instantly taken to her instead of Michael. And if you're going to have a storyline where it's more focused on Michael, which obviously is really what this whole show is, how can you put in a character as powerful as Giorgio and then give her that much screen time? Because literally she steals the show. And I'm sorry?
With no story. I mean, she's just there.
That's right. It's literally like she's just kind of there hanging out, and she's like she's the sidekick on the night show that always sits over to the side on the couch. That's really what she was. But the problem is, like, if you have something like Conan O'Brien where you have somebody like that as a sidekick, the problem is that once Giorgio starts talking, she's now Conan O'Brien. So it's an automatic role reversal. I didn't care for either one of the characters for the most part, but if I had to pick between the two of them, I did like the way Giorgio did things. I especially like the mirror universe version of her. I thought she was fantastic. It almost like she had more of a conscience, but she didn't. It was a really weird way to write it.
I really liked Emperor Giorgio as a character, but I didn't think she fit. I didn't think she
didn't fit.
As a main character, I didn't think she fit.
And that's why I think that's why they did what they did. But they had to actually build the story to get her off the show. You can't just, in my opinion, after the amount of time we've had her, you can't just do it in 2 episodes.
No.
At the beginning of the season, it had to build, which is why obviously we got all those like, oh, she's having issues, then they have to examine her and all that, and eventually get her off the show.
Yeah, but the problem, Michael, with that is that when you deal with the templating system that they seem to have going, which is essentially, like I said earlier, which is Burnham gets told she can't do something, she does it anyway, there's barely a result. So
I disagree with you wholeheartedly on that.
That's fine.
I think that it started that way. She did do her own thing, and the consequence was she got demoted. But later, and everyone's freaking, no, but that's the thing. Later in the season, there's multiple times where you see that instinct of hers wanting to do things, but then she would go to Vance instead. She's learned as the season went on.
She's progressing. Yeah, I would agree. That is going to be the natural evolution of the character, I'm guessing. Yeah.
And then when she didn't do what Stamets isn't her, or is he commanding officer? Stamets didn't want her to do something because it was personal. She learned from her own experience that when you let your emotions guide you, sometimes it's the wrong choice. She made the choice for the Federation and blew him out of the spaceship in a bubble. But then that ultimately ended up being the right choice anyways. So like there's all of this progression in her going from this really brash, person who just does whatever she wants because she's forgotten essentially how to be a Starfleet officer to becoming a Starfleet officer. Is
it really that, or is it arrogance?
It could be, but at the end of the day, I feel like they were trying very hard to show the progression of her they wanted to show her grow so that by the end of the season, she can be a captain.
Yeah. As much as I like your point, I don't agree with all of it, but it's definitely it's food for thought for sure. I agree.
And like Saru, like later on in the season, he had that moment, right, where Burnham and him talked about that because she's questioning, like, are you doing this? Like, are you sure you want to do this? Because this is an emotional choice. So it's now like her going to him instead of him, because earlier in the season she totally screwed him over, right? But now it's reversed. The roles reversed, and you see her actually trying to talk him down. That to me was a big change in her.
I think they telegraphed it, like I was saying earlier. I kind of saw it coming, but I think they did do the character growth with Burnham effectively, so that by the end, I felt like it was a right choice to make her captain. I think even the scene where Vance picked her and she's yeah, are you sure? I mean, I'm honored, but and he reaffirms he's making the right choice here. He knows he is. So and
that goes to this thing in and sorry, I'm just gonna bring myself back just to ask this question. So like and all three of you, really, it's kind of a matter of like that last episode in particular, like that Hope Is You Part 2, where Michael Burnham is kind of a badass, right? She's kicking ass, taking names. We said in our recap, Adam, Michael, and I, that she was kind of Kirkified for that. That she became more of an action hero type, right? Fighting Osira and whatever, and kind of willing her way through that. That was them trying to sell her as the hero of the show at the most, right? Like that she kind of got the job done. But I guess it's whether or not you believe it, right? It's whether or not was it good enough. For me, it was. By the end, you're like, yeah, Michael Burnham, you should have kind of been the captain all along, or at least since probably the beginning of this season, at least, and you're not.
It bothered me that they spent so much time in this season developing Saru as a captain, and then he was gone.
Yeah, I agree.
I felt did you feel a sense of loss when Saru was gone? Mike kind of said
absolutely.
Yes, right?
Yeah,
I did very much.
As you guys may remember, if you or at least Dave and Adam, I did say, like, I thought that Saru would be captain by the end of this season. That they would tease Michael, but it would be Saru because it just made sense based on the arc of this season. And then they went with Michael. So in that way, I do agree that I don't think they did enough to make Michael earn the pips over Saru.
Well, what's the future of Saru? Is Saru back on this show, season 4, and what is his place in this show?
I am curious to see where that goes, though. I mean, for all we know, he could end up back in the captain's chair anyways.
Yeah.
They can't leave Saru. Saru's not done. He's not done.
Mm-mm.
But will he be a member of this crew again? Or will he be some kind of recurring character? Or
he could get his own ship or something, maybe. Yeah.
How will they coexist on this show if that's the case?
Well,
I could see
Burnham will probably screw it up again, and then he'll be back.
No, I feel like now that they've chosen Burnham, they need to just stick with her.
Stick with the
They've got to stop playing this musical chairs with the captain.
Yeah.
Every show has a captain.
I think you bring Saru back as the conscience of Michael, the one that the person, her confidant, the one that she goes to, and maybe that's in an Admiral Saru.
Maybe he's more of an advisor. Someone else had thrown out Admiral Saru. He was a lieutenant commander when we met him in the first season. So that he's quite gone up the chain very quickly here. But
it's a fast promotion. But
probably not as much as what's her name though, Wiseman.
And I want to talk about Tilly because I guess the question is now.
I always keep saying Wiseman, but
let's talk about Tilly because if Saru is not going to be the captain anymore and he's going to be on the show in some kind of other way, maybe or maybe not moving forward. Tilly was made the first officer after Burnham was told she couldn't even have that job anymore. 6 episodes later, she'll be the captain, but Tilly as an ensign is put into this number 1 role. Did the three of you like that? Let's start with Mike.
I thought it was a fun thing to do. I didn't really feel like they were I didn't really feel like Saru was giving her that because she had earned it, more because of who she was. She's an organized person. She could rattle off all the tasks lists that the crew had to get done and keep everybody on point. But more as an administrator than truly a number one that's going to be able to, rally the troops and that kind of thing. We saw it towards the end. I think she made some good development, but I really didn't believe it at first. I thought it was just, okay, she's walking down there and just checking things off for him as they're walking through the hallways. But
she was more administrative assistant. Is that what, or okay, well, maybe. Jody.
I was probably the biggest supporter of Tilly going into the season. I really like her. I like the character at the beginning, but as the season went on, I think they're trying to progress her to be a little bit more badass, have a little bit more gusto to her, because she's kind of boring for the most part. Like the character itself is a bit boring. When we first meet her, she's pretty boring, and she's kind of progressed into a character that is a little bit more kind of forthcoming with things now and stuff like that. I think it's ridiculous to think that an ensign can end up, fucking being, second in line. But
they can promote
right away.
Like,
you can field promotion, but that's a little far. Like it's,
in the current federation, though. Come on, they made
they got to do what they
got
to do,
dude. They made a space station dude an actual Starfleet officer.
Yeah, no, and I understand that, and obviously the circumstances do change things. I think Tilly as a character, I want to see more of her. I don't want to see her in a really, really high leadership role, though. I think she needs to be more like, kind of a fourth or a fifth in kind of character. I think that kind of gives her that kind of regulation over the standards, but not over, the people in charge kind of thing.
So who do you think is number one right now?
Well, I can tell you who number one is because I saw the last episode. I guess not number one, but you're talking commander, like second in command. Mm-hmm. That's going to be the problem because I don't really know. I don't know who would make that because I don't think anybody is right for that right now. The only person I would think of that would be Burnham, and obviously she can't be. So I don't know.
Tilly, right? It's going
to have to be Tilly, I think. Yeah, I agree.
Pretty sure it is.
It's going to be Tilly, I'm guessing, but I don't necessarily know if she needs to be.
Who else would it be? Stamets?
No,
definitely not.
No.
He should barely even be in Starfleet, in my opinion, but he is. But let's stay on Tilly. Kevin, where do you stand on this character?
Let me answer that question by asking you a question, Dave. Would you ever put Barclay in charge of the Enterprise?
There you go.
No, Tilly should never be in that position.
Are you saying that Tilly is Barclay?
Yes, she has no confidence, except like when they finally when she loses the ship, and I the one thing I did like is she didn't crumble after that.
That's
happened.
right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad they did that with her.
And I think that's the progression of her now.
The first moment where I was like, okay, this character's not that bad. I don't like Tilly at all. I do think she's like Barclay. She's got no confidence whatsoever. She's kind of annoying.
That was really endearing about her, I think, in season 1 and 2, and that's why I kind of liked the character. If she was less serious, she could kind of always get a laugh out of somebody. She
was a bit of the Joker, yeah.
But I've always liked her. It was the lack of confidence. It makes me wonder, how are you a Starfleet officer? And I thought the same thing about Barclay when he was. So it's like,
how did they get through the academy?
Stuttering.
Right.
I've always believed that because Tilly's character was supposed to break the mold, right? Like she not only with her lack of confidence and her use of more modern language than everybody else, like modern to our times, that is, she was also physically breaking the mold as well. And for that, I think what they were trying to imply with her, at least in season 1, was that she got in because of her brains. She's like just incredibly smart, and that they could not pass up having that brain in Starfleet despite some of her other shortcomings. And season 3, I felt, was them saying, okay, now we're going to watch her grow as a human, as a person. And this timid, person who nobody would ever think would be a Starfleet officer is growing into one.
Right.
See, I always think of her.
I think that's exactly what they did with Barclay. That's why I think there's parallels with Barclay, because Barclay was brilliant, but you would never put him in command of the Enterprise. You just wouldn't.
Like, he's not even a night shift command. Yeah.
But we saw, even in Voyager, though, by the end of the Voyager, we saw that Barclay in his older years had changed. He no longer spoke with a stammer. He became a confident teacher at Starfleet Academy.
Yeah, because he was on land and he wasn't anywhere near a starship anymore. That's the reason why.
Of a starship.
But my point is that maybe he could have gotten there, and I think that
we could get there too. Everybody can get there. Everybody can grow. That's kind of the whole point of Star Trek. But it at this point, it was definitely a mistake to put her in command.
Well, it doesn't go very well for her, but she's up against it. I think. Can you criticize any of those decisions she made while she was in the command chair?
No.
She kind of did it by the book.
They did. I think to show you that sometimes the book isn't right. So
on her character, though, guys, I mean, like, they did a great job making her the Joker, and I think she was funny. Mm-hmm. And through season 1 and 2 and the beginning of this season, she was that character, and then they made her the first officer, and they lost that endearing part of her. Yeah. And I get they were trying to make her a leader, and they didn't do it well. And even when she was, with the what'd you call them, Dave? The C crew or whatever it was, the
B team.
The B team, pardon me, thank you. When she was in the B team, below decks there, and she's trying to gain back the ship, and it's like, come on, guys, let's go. It wasn't a leader role. She wasn't commanding. She was just. It reminded me of like a schoolyard. She was just running around with the kids on the lower deck.
She's like the volunteer champion.
She reminds me a lot more of Jody than anybody from Next Gen, because she's got the brain. She's socially awkward, and as you progressed, like even with Next Gen, when you progress, like. Anybody remember Jody from the first and second seasons? He was essentially Tilly. Like he literally same idea. And then kind of that third season is where he kind of made that stretch into like, now he's the boss dude. And now he's got a little bit more confidence. He's going after the chicks and like, all that stuff. But the social awkwardness of him and Barclay, I think, is a perfect example, as Kevin pointed it out. Barclay is really the exact same character. It's almost frightening how close they are. But I think they're trying to progress her. And as you said, Adam, those first couple episodes, she was still the comic person. And then when she was given the role of responsibility, she kind of turned that off. And I think in a way that's kind of the same thing. If you look at Picard was always pretty serious, but there was occasional times, especially as he got friendlier with the cast and with the crew of the ship, he started getting a little bit more jokery. So when you take that leadership position, all of a sudden you're kind of back to that Stonewall thing going on, and then eventually you kind of ease back into being the Joker again, right? So,
but I would argue that she really, once she became first officer, I mean, she was thrown into a really high pressure situation that nobody else really has ever, like no other ensign has ever had this happen to them. So I think that turning off of the Joker was almost necessary, because I mean, how could she joke around in a situation where she freaking lost a ship and they could all die?
Completely agree.
Who would you rather have in command of the bridge, Ensign Tilly or Ensign Harry Kim?
Oh
my
Tilly.
God.
Tilly for sure.
I would have Tilly.
I would have Tilly hands down.
Yeah, I wouldn't even think twice. There's a reason why Ensign Kim was always Ensign Kim.
And
make no mistake, Janeway, in her infinite wisdom, kept him where he needed to be. That's exactly where he should have been.
Well, let's not forget, he was still voted one of the top 100 sexiest people in America. So
no one can ever take that from him.
Exactly.
Well, that's great, but I don't think that makes the ship run. But That's fine.
It makes a lot of other things run, but yeah.
I just want to get to some of the other characters. We're coming up to our first hour here. I'm hoping maybe another half an hour to an hour if we're all up for it, just to kind of further delve into this season. There's quite a bit more to get through.
I haven't even started being bitchy yet, Dave.
I know, but let's just talk about the characters. The other characters who came with Burnham and the rest of them, the main cast, which would really only be Stamets and Culber, who I think we can kind of talk about maybe together because they are an item on the show. But Stamets, I guess, is the more dominant of the two in terms of screen time. Clearly, yeah. So arguably, I guess. So where do you guys stand on Paul Stamets and Hugh Culber? Individually and as an item?
I like them. Now that book can do the spore drive, can we get rid of Stamets? I can't stand him. He's so snarky with everybody all the time. It drives me crazy.
That's Anthony Rapp, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is anyone loving Stamets?
I'm loving the unit.
I'm loving the fact that him and the troll girl, Adira. I like the connection between them because it's almost like a father and daughter type situation, and you kind of seeing him open up a little bit. He's not like the rigid asshole like he normally is all the time. He's starting to care a little bit, like when she's talking about the whole I want to be called they or whatever, which is a whole other situation which I'm not going to talk about right now. But that to me, that little tiny glimpse into how he deals with that situation and the hope that you have with him kind of makes me think that there is more to this character. He's not just that prickish guy that's like sitting down in engineering and he's the only guy that can fucking do everything, so he's not Jody from like season 7, like I guess is a good way to look at it.
He did show some growth in this season. He still drives me nuts though.
I completely agree. I do like the banter between him and Reno.
Jet Reno, yeah.
Jet Reno. I do like the banter between them. I think she's literally the easiest, probably one of my favorite characters in the entire show. I really hope we see more of her soon. It's overall, I think I would disagree on the fact that he hasn't really progressed, because I think he has progressed. I think you are seeing the change in him now. He's starting to be a little bit friendlier with everybody. I think he's pissed off at this situation. I think he's pissed off at the whole fucking situation. He doesn't want to be there. He has no reason to be there. He doesn't want to be there. He knows he's 1 foot out the door already. So I would be shocked if they kill him off in the next season.
He's spore drive, but now they give him the spore drive thing to book, so they don't have to keep him.
Yeah, he doesn't serve much of a purpose now in the plot, which is kind of, I think in a way I think they're trying to portray that character a little bit as angry because he kind of knows he's slowly becoming less useful. And I think you're kind of seeing like almost like an old age type scenario with him, right?
Where is he long for the show is kind of what I'm wondering, but where do you stand, Mike, on Stamets?
On Stamets, I there was points in the first and second season where I appreciated his just cutting. He was a prick, and that was the character kind of suited. Now that I see the progression, I do like that as well. And you can give a few more of those one-liners to Jet Reno because she's going to pull it off better too.
Oh, for sure.
Right. Like I do like their banter, but I think with him, finding a family, almost reuniting now that him and Culber are back on good terms. They've seemed to have, rekindled their flame and now they've got potentially a family unit going on. He's not Mr. Everything with the spore drive anymore. Maybe we can actually start to see some, 32nd century engineering going on and get a little bit more into that and have him step back in a way a little bit too.
I actually think that my prediction for him and that family unit in the next season is that the story arc they're going to go with them is figuring out what happens with what's his name, Gray.
Yeah,
like what exactly he is and how to get him out of her. I think that's where you're going to see Stamets. And I like that.
I think that'll be good.
Yeah. It'll be good for him to have something else to do.
Well, yeah, I think that's my problem with my issue with Stamets. More than anything, is that he's not too useful. Like, he doesn't do much in terms of the missions, other than he puts his now hands in goo. He used to, inject it up his arm, but to make the spore drive work. And yeah, like he was supposed to be this like quippy, like sharp-witted guy, but he's not that good at it. Jet Reno much better, and I think the episode where she's like just throwing jabs at him one after another, I'm like, oh, she's so much better at this. Oh, this is so fun, right?
Yeah, where they're where he's in the tube and all that. That was just hilarious. Right. I enjoyed that.
But like, obviously, Culber always saw a side of him that was endearing enough, right? And Culber's relatively a likable person, so like the opposite.
Gotta have somebody though.
Gotta have somebody, but. In terms of his role as the doctor, although there's another doctor in Dr. Pollard who's also on the ship, and what their dynamic is, I'm not quite sure. But at least Culber seems to be the main doctor of the two, and he gets to go on more away missions. He goes on quite a few away missions in this season, different things, and he's very in the action, which I liked a lot. Like that's what I want to see out of these characters. I want to see, like, in the various stories they tell, I want them to be participants. And sometimes I just feel like Stamets is not much of a participant.
I really like Hugh. I find that he's a bit like everybody's Jiminy Cricket. He's everybody's conscience. He always has something smart to say, something thoughtful to say.
Right. He's kind of like the heart of that team, of this crew. Yeah, I think Culber is the better of the two, like in terms of the character. And Culber was originally just supposed to be this recurring character that they were going to kill off, and that was it. But they resurrected him and brought him back. And I would be more sad to see him go than Stamets. But anyway, not one of them has to go. And then, is there anything else on those two that you wanted to touch on? Anybody?
Nope.
No.
Okay.
I would.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Yeah. On Stamets, though, I just think it wouldn't take too much to bring him into a bigger role. Put him on a couple of away missions, give him something to do. Make him the chief engineer. Like, who is the chief engineer? I'm not sure.
We saw it in one graphic early in season 1 that it said he's the chief engineer because he invented the spore drive. But
but I don't know. It seems like there's a bunch of people working down there with nobody.
Really Jet Reno. I think Jet Reno's the real chief engineer. But
that's kind of the problem that I've, and that kind of gets back to the same point that even Kevin made earlier, was the fact that the cohesion of the crew is kind of something that's important in Star Trek all the time, and the fact that all of us are sitting here going, "Who is the chief engineer?" That should be a red flag.
I can tell you right now, he is the chief engineer, and I'm not going to tell you how I know why, but yes, I know that.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
But that's great. But the fact that we had to sit here and think about that kind of bothers me, because all of us can name the chief engineer on every single other Star Trek show. Hands down. I'm almost positive we can all do that.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's something they'll have to continue exploring as they go forward. I think they're
having said that about him, the role, the family unit that's evolving with the three of them is great. I like it. I like the conversations. I like everything about that, and I wouldn't want that to end yet.
And if it softens him up a bit, that'll be great.
Yeah. Well, and you're already kind of seeing some of that, right? So.
I also felt like that, Jet Reno, also member of LGBTQ community, she kind of is the fourth sort of unofficial member of this family, like in the sense that they're part of the community.
She's kind of like grandma.
Yeah, well, she already had this kinship with Stamets and Culber before Adira came along.
Yeah,
but and Gray, for that, I keep forgetting Gray is a real person. And Adira's not technically main cast, but ought as well have been. So I think this is the segue into Adira, because we still have to talk about book as well. But Adira is this new character along with Gray and the whole tall symbiote and all this backstory that they gave a lot of time to in this season. They gave some strong connections with, as we said, with Stamets, Culber. as played by, I'm sorry, the name of the actor who plays Adira. I don't have the name with me right now, but Blue, I believe. But anyway, so I thought they were really strong, but I wanted to kind of get your sense of this character and the arc and everything else. Let's go to Mike first.
I love the arc. I love seeing him be in a human for the first time. I think that's where we're kind of getting Gray as a lingering presence in her mind, and hopefully next season physically too, they can make a manifestation of Gray. But I think I really did enjoy, seeing that, seeing what is the speech, the Trill, the Trill homeworld. That was an interesting to go dive into that a little bit. And the fact that, she kind of led them to the Federation. It started off as a plot device, and I think she really grew on me towards the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, Kevin, the whole Adira story, the tall story, and this idea of a symbiote and a human. Where do you stand?
I think it's interesting. Not so interesting that I have strong opinions about it. I like it. I like when they went to Trill and they were wondering what to do with this human that had been joined and what it meant for them. And I like that at the end, Trill is, I think, the first planet to rejoin the Federation after all of that as a new, so that Trill kind of goes through in these few episodes a transformation almost.
Right.
I like it. I had trouble. I don't really remember the finer points of her story arc. I remember I watched this in 2 days.
This whole idea that Adira sees Gray, this former host, and also boyfriend of Adira.
Right.
Did that work for you?
Yeah, it was fine. It wasn't great, but it was fine. It didn't. It wasn't a good. I didn't hate it.
That's good. All right. Okay. Jody, and Adira. Okay, so you've touched a little bit on it, but what are your thoughts on the character and the story?
I think the character is a great character to have to the cast. I think it's interesting to have Trills. Trills they've always been one of the more fascinating species to me in the Star Trek lore. The major problem that I have with the character is the fact that they're focusing too much on her a lot. And as a character who has been brought in after I've already had 2 seasons of other people, which obviously I haven't, but I'm using that as the standard here. The fact that you've had 2 seasons of all these other reoccurring characters and then have the focus brought on her so much kind of bothers me. I'm hoping they kind of level her out a little bit for the next season. I think her storyline was good. It was neat to see the fact that the Trill people can be racist. I think that's great. The whole the only big issue that I have with it is I kind of get a Sub Rosa vibe with the whole thing. Sub Rosa being obviously that terrible Crusher episode
that we did on Radio Theater. Yes.
Yeah, well, that was something else. But anyway, but anyway, the reason why I say the whole Sub Rosa vibe is it's getting to the point where there's a little too much going on with her to the whole Gray thing. I think is a neat idea, but I think we're going to end up having a very, very uneventful thing with all of that. I think it's going to turn out to be it's an echo of the past or something like that, or it's mirror universe Trill or something like that. They can do a couple things with it, but I just hope they don't keep the focus on her, because it seems like every time she's in the room, the entire story just all of a sudden goes back to her, where they, or whichever way we're referring to it this time. But with that, the character itself, I think is a great character. I like the character. I like how she's got a bit of innocence to her, but you also kind of know that she can fight if she needs to, kind of thing. I like that aspect of her. But overall, I think I need less focus on her and a little bit more focus on some of the other characters. in the show.
Too much screen time, you said, for this.
Little too much, yeah. I'm not saying that it was wasted. I think it's a great storyline arc to have. It brought the Trill in, and as Kevin pointed out, that's kind of cool to see that as well. So I think it was necessary. I just don't think we needed to have as much of it, which is, I think, my major problem with it.
Okay, yeah, and by the end of the season, Adira's in a Starfleet uniform. That's like quicker than even Wesley Crusher.
But you know what? And that gets back to Michael's point, which is, they're in a devastated environment. Like, this is an environment where stuff like promotions happen quickly because you kind of have to rebuild. Like, that's somebody's got to step up and all that. So it makes sense. Sorry,
I think by the middle of next season, Gray will just be a hollow, because they've already shown that they can do it, or that it can be done, right? So,
never even thought of that. Yeah, we could have another Doctor from Voyager kind of scenario here.
Do we need Gray Tall?
No,
as a character.
No. Actually, I'm hoping we don't, because so far from what I've seen, I'm not happy. I think
we've seen the character as a plot device again, going outside of or going to the edge and trying to get out of the holodeck.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, maybe some character development with Adira, but
maybe he'll turn into Moriarty. That'd be amazing. I'm down with that. He starts taking over
little box.
Shit.
Jody in a little box.
I like that. I like that one.
I don't know. I don't think Gray is going to be a big part of next season. I just think that once they sort out what Gray is and how they're going to make Gray an entity in himself, that he'll just be a recurring character that pops up when necessary for whatever the story is, and it makes sense for him to be there. Kind of like Jet Reno pops up here and there when needed, right?
Or like Keiko.
Yeah, like the Keiko.
So
unfortunately, that's usually a signal of a bad episode. But anyway.
But I also think that what we're going to find is like his existence was necessary for Adira to actually be a human Trill. I think that's where this is going to be.
That's maybe the byproduct. Yeah, that's.
Well, I hope that's where they go. I don't think that's where they're going to go, but I would hope
that's what I think.
Great. Yeah, I agree. I think that would be fantastic.
Right. We also had like this character. Remember Non?
This is one of my favorite characters. She disappeared.
The one with the Barzan with the breathing tubes and everything else.
Oh yes, okay, yeah.
She was supposed to be main cast for this season, but they got rid of her pretty fast, and no one cared.
I like Non, but yeah, she disappeared, and then I was actually just looking her up before we came on because I was like, what episode did she leave in? I don't even remember. She's an actor.
It was like fourth episode, something like that. It was not long after they got back to the Federation, right? It was
they found a Barzan family. She went on back to Barzan, I guess.
I think it was episode 6. I think she
yes,
she did
have
a lot to do. She wasn't. Do you know who we mean, Kevin?
Yep.
Were you like? I know you didn't know her coming in, and so it was,
no. I thought her character was fine, but I didn't get much of her. She didn't do much in this season, really. So
she didn't do much in last season either, to be fair. So it's there's not a lot to her really. Like it was kind of it felt like Non had to leave in order to bring like maybe Adira and Adira and Gray into the show. And Book. Okay, let's talk about Book, because Book and his cat and all that. So Mike or Jody, you may have watched the same video that I had, which was like the angry nerd guy. Well, everything he's mad at about this show. He's known as
anyway, that's fine.
But maybe we watched different videos. But I was like, okay, what are the critics saying? And what he said about Book, kind of I don't know. It struck a chord. I don't know if it's true or not, but I wanted to throw it out here to the group. And he was like, "Book the hetero male, but he's a non-threatening male of color who talks to animals and plants, and therefore he's an attack on toxic masculinity, and he's antithesis to that, or something."
That's really stretching it, I think. But all
Well,
right.
that's quite the stretch.
Wow.
Does
Does
that resonate with anybody? Like,
Now that you've pointed it out, there's definitely.
I'm getting a lot of notes.
Just on that, Dave, I've seen a lot of I've watched a lot of reviews of episodes on other channels and season recaps too, and there's a lot of negativity out there, and I think a lot of the negativity stems from different people's personal stuff, and that to me seems like a big stretch into.
Yeah, let's be honest. I'll be the guy that's the elephant in the room here. Okay, let's be honest. This show really is going for the whole gay lesbian vibe thing. Okay, like they're definitely going there, and that's fine. Okay, I have no problem with representation.
You need to qualify that.
Well, I mean representation. I don't mean necessarily like we're gonna have all these gay, the whole ship's gay people, and that's fine. That's not what I mean. What I'm saying is that the representation is much better in this series than it is in previous series. But we have seen this before. Like nothing that's happened here is new for the Star Trek world. Okay, we've had androgynous people, we've had gay people, we've had straight, everything you can think of. We've had people who talk to fucking animals. Like there's nothing new here, but the fact that they put it all together, I think, really does anger a lot of people, which is sad because we still live in a world where people are angry about this kind of shit. But to me, I think it's just a total waste of fucking time. But what do I care who sleeps with who? I don't give a shit.
If you like Star Trek, you shouldn't be angry at this because
exactly
what Star Trek is.
Yeah, the whole point of Star Trek was supposed to be that the fact that we've come past all these stupid fucking differences and all that stuff, but then you have critiques of people who might be very biased to gay people and stuff like that, and I think that does definitely come into what you're saying, Mike, which is there's a lot of people that are very angry about this show, and I'm not angry at this show for anything to do with that. I'm angry at the fact that I don't like a lot of the storylines. I don't like a lot of the characters. This is not Star Trek that I'm used to growing up to. I have the same problem with this show as I have with Picard. Okay, and I was probably, if you ask all these guys, I was probably one of the most pumped up people about Picard because Picard is literally my hero. Okay, I love the dude. I love the character, and it's there's a lot of anger in the community now because there's a lot of bigot assholes out there. So it's he kind of goes.
I should put Adam on the spot for a second here because Adam, you told me a story of a run-in you had at a Starbucks. Talk about Star Trek Discovery this season.
Yeah, I was it was actually the Petro Canada next to Starbucks, but I was there one day and this guy, he had a leather jacket on, Star Trek, signed by original cast members. Okay, so hey, this is a kindred spirit. I can talk to this guy.
I might as well give him a chat. Yeah,
communicator. And I said, so what do you think of Discovery? Oh man, he just went on and on about anti-gay and lesbian. It was embarrassing because I'm going, how is this guy a fan?
Yeah,
and clearly
you're obviously missing the entire point of the entire Star Trek universe.
Right. And here I am in the parking lot of Petro, and I'm deciding, okay, do I take this on or just walk away? Because
you got to walk it.
And yeah, I did. I walked it, but I was just disappointed, because you think that, like you guys, we like the show, we like the spirit, we like the message, and here's this guy who you think is going to be another person who enjoys this, and he just ripped it apart in the wrong way, in my opinion. And
but yeah, it doesn't matter what the medium is. There's always going to be somebody who's angry about what's happening, it's I think this is probably one of the most friendly shows for all those communities, like the LGBTQ communities. Obviously one of the more friendly sci-fi shows for that, for sure. Sci-fi has been predominantly more of a male-driven environment to begin with. I think, in a lot of the writing. So it's refreshing to see some of this stuff. I have nothing against anything to do with any of the plots when it comes to the relationships of the people on this show. It doesn't bother me at all. I just see it as a normal thing. It doesn't make any difference to me. And I think most of you guys have that same impression from what I can see. But yeah, there's a lot of bigoted assholes out there who are complete jerks, and they're people that they're never going to be happy with what they're going to get no matter what. And Lower Decks is a perfect example for me, because when I first started watching Lower Decks, I think I told all of you guys this is the biggest waste of fucking time there is. And then as I actually progressed, I actually rewatched the entire series with my kids. Okay, because they were interested in it. They're not really big Star Trek people. My daughter is okay with Next Gen, but pretty much everything else they're not big fans of. And when we rewatched Lower Decks, I saw the reaction and I said, wait a second, this is being made for them. It's not for me. Yes, fan service for me. I get it. Seeing, exocomps and all that shit is pretty cool. But that this show, I don't think is trying to do fan service in that way. But it is definitely doing fan service, as I mentioned earlier, the Spock thing. And yeah, you're going to have some of that anyway. But I think, getting back to your bigoted asshole from the gas station, he's probably a massive fan of Kirk, and, everything that Kirk's in is gold. But he might hate DS9, right? Because there's, a lesbian person on it,
but you think of we were watching last night, when that whole discussion we had about how they treated women and 55 years ago, this is what this guy embodied, that spirit. Like, oh my God, go back 55 years. Things have changed, man.
But I think that's where a lot of the hate for the show comes from, is the fact that it is different. I'm still under the same impression that this should have been a future show. This never should have been in the past. This is a show that literally, if they started it off in the future, it's in ruins, blah, 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 and we started from there, this show would have been amazing from the start, I think. I think they could have really strided it in that way. But the fact that they had to bring 2 seasons worth of this shit to get to this point kind of bothers me a bit. So, and again, I can't reflect on everything in the
at least they
go
got
back to what Michael said in the beginning. It's happened.
Well, and this is the season 3 thing, right? If we think about all the different series, with the exception of the original series, season 3 is the stride season. That's the season where everything kind of gets, DS9 gets fantastic come season 3. Next Gen, fantastic from season 3.
Even Voyager was getting better.
Voyager got, once they got rid of Kess, things were getting way better.
If they do well from this point, then you forgive them and you watch it. It's the Star Trek way.
That is the way. Exactly. And
you forgive all the sin once you do something good.
They bring the writers in.
We have the 3rd season, and they're showing us this now, right? And this is where we're getting, right?
But they're trying to
bring the writers in. We go, guys, sit down. If you want a job next year, you got to pull it together and get us some ratings here.
Right. Well, they are trying to go for 3 big social issues with this season's writing, right? One of the biggest ones was gender identity, because it is a big topic of our day. How could they not write about it? It's like asking the writers in the 60s Star Trek not to write about race relations in their scripts. Of course they're going to talk about it. Now, did it work or did it not work is the question.
I think it worked, but I think we had a little too much focus on it.
I actually disagree. I think it worked totally because they barely focused on it. It just is in the show.
Well,
People
it is
are who they are, and they don't talk about it.
If you're looking at it from that view, I get you.
And the other ones were mental health and resource scarcity, were the other 2 big social issues they wanted to tackle. Now, the mental health thing was the Detmer story, mostly, a little bit with the Burnham story, maybe. I don't know if that, basically the whole point of Detmer's story was, she needs help, just ask for help, and then she's better. So that's maybe my criticism of that.
I can't say that whole storyline was really all that interesting or good.
I appreciated it. I mean, at least they showed that she had PTSD, right? And
the fact that they're showing this is great. Yes, I agree completely.
And she did get help in the end.
I think this show is suffering a little bit from the 13 episode format as well. They've got to button things up so quickly that you don't really get a deep dive into anything.
Well, the the whole speculation, which obviously is just speculation online, and let's be honest, Trek nerds are all over the place. But the speculation is that the rewrites that happened for the season was because the season was supposed to be the last season, and with that, they had to rewrite some stuff to get rid of the arcs out, to not allow them to go further into that stuff. But this is also the shortest season out of all of them, because there wasn't 13 episodes in the original first season.
The first season had 14 episodes.
14, and then the second season, I think
15. I think
it was more. Yeah. So, but they're bouncing around, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If they got a story to tell and they could do it in 13 episodes, then that's great. But it's, well, look at Picard. Picard's what, 10 episodes, I think, was the first season.
Yeah, it was 10.
Yeah. So with that, and getting back to Michael's point, I think the PSD thing is something that we don't really see too often. Like, we saw it a little bit with Barkley in Next Gen. We definitely saw it a little bit more in DS9. Voyager, maybe not so much.
The one we did it on Radio Theater, the Memorial, where Kevin was the Tom Paris, and he had the PTSD from.
Okay, yes,
and the Deep Space Nine episode with O'Brien when he's going to kill himself. That's
that one's shade.
And they did it well, yeah.
But getting back to Michael's point, I think it's great that they are showing that, because we need to see the weakness of these characters. We can't always think that they're going to be every character in Star Trek is Will Riker. Okay, we have to have that. We have to have that balance. We have to have the people who are literally going to curl up in a ball sometimes. This is reality. Like, this is not, all of us can be all strong right now, but there might be a scenario where we're not going to be strong. We might just curl up and fucking cry. That could happen, and that could happen to any of us, right? So it's nice to see that. So I agree with you, Michael. I think that's a great addition to the season.
And the third one being resource scarcity, which I think is the whole thing with dilithium here, and the idea that dilithium was kind of is a finite resource, I suppose, right? Like there's only so much of it, and especially after the burn, and that the spore drive, which is a renewable form of energy, I suppose, is a preferable thing to that. Like, it's so is that
Star Trek convenience?
Well, is this too much of a contrivance? Is maybe what my question is, or did this as a message in a story, a plot device work or not? For you guys, because we talked about the resolution of the burn, that it's Sukal and it's just this guy who got mad about his mom having died, wasn't necessarily the most satisfying, but is like what they're trying to say about resource scarcity, this whole theme, did they do it well or not?
I think again they skimmed. I think with to Kevin's point, it's a 13 episode season. We didn't get into a lot of stuff deep enough in this. I didn't even the Vulcan thing, and Vulcan and Romulan coming together. We got one episode really in depth into their ceremony there, but we really didn't get into deep. I think the scarcity thing, great for the times, especially politically when we see what's going on in the world right now. But we could have gone a little bit deeper into it.
I'm really hopeful for a fourth season. I think they will maybe hopefully dive a little deeper into certain things. And I'm wondering, the Federation now controls this dilithium planet. Are they going to share with everybody? Are there going to be debates on who they're going to give dilithium to? Is that correct? Is that okay? Is it like there's all sorts of moral implications, moral stories that they could do?
Good point. And just on that, it reminded me, because the whole episode where they do go to Vulcan, Navarre, as it's now known, is that they said when before the burn, the part of the problem was that the Federation was kind of giving dilithium to anybody who needed it, but the result of that was there wasn't kind of a lot going around, and when it all blew up, it was disastrous because they overstretched how much aid they could give. The Federation's benevolence or charity knew no bounds, and that caused issues.
Yeah, they finally hit their limit, essentially.
I thought that was an interesting thing they threw in there because they're trying to like I think link this to fossil fuels ultimately, right? Is what
I think that's the undertone. Yeah, the undertone is to kind of say, even in the future they have these problems, But right. I agree. I personally think it's a neat thing to introduce the fact that there is scarcity for resources, which is something you didn't really find too much in any of the other series for the most part. Like the most scarcity we have was the fact, Voyager, I guess, probably would have
Voyager because they weren't able to go to the gas station.
Yeah, they couldn't just pull over and refill every so often. So with that, I think that's kind of cool, but they definitely didn't touch into it enough, in my opinion. I think it was literally just kind of glossed over. And I think that's kind of where we get back to the rumors of it being only supposed to be the 3 seasons. And with that, I think they've taken it out prematurely. And now that there is going to be a 4th season, we're missing a lot of that story that they've taken out. So I think they've taken out a lot of the stuff to kind of make sure that they could kind of end the season if they could. I'm going to make a really bold prediction right now. I think we're going to have a 16 episodes season for next season, and I think that's going to be the last of it. I think our last episode is them getting back to their own time somehow or some way, and we're back to reset. And I think they're going to do a 4th season, and that's kind of my prediction.
Interesting prediction. It could be the last season, but them going back to the 23rd century is not something I had really considered them doing.
I think it's going to happen. I have a funny feeling that it's going to be kind of one of those things where they go back and they can redo all the wrongs, kind of scenario where it's like, we can prevent the burn, we can do all this stuff, so it's like, I guess.
But that would be
a moral complication of facing a future.
I think it is a moral complication, absolutely, and I think that's what this show is going to end up doing. We're already starting to see them going kind of off grid based on the normal Star Trek tropes. So the resource scarcity being obviously one of the bigger ones. I think that's where we're going. I'm no expert. I'm just some fucking fat dude who's on a podcast. But in reality, that's where I think we're going. I can't see us running this for 7 seasons. I can't see that this crew would go that far. I don't think this is a 7-season show. I think we're at an Enterprise level of seasons here for this show. So if
I took season 3 as season 1, I can definitely see them going at.
Then I could have
4 more seasons because their scarcity, for example, like there's so many planets they can now go explore, many different diplomatic situations they can come across with rebuilding the Federation and all of that, and there's just so much that could happen. I mean, what happens if the Klingons turn out to be another, horribly violent or antagonistic? Maybe not violent. Maybe they're just antagonistic because something happened in between all of this stuff. They did allude to the Federation not exactly being, cleaned all these years. They have done something. We just don't know what.
There's all this story around the Time Wars that we don't know yet either, right?
I just don't see them going back. There's just so much to explore left.
Yeah, and I would disagree with you there, Michael. I think that's very valid. I look at this series as this is the series that's going to spin off all the other ones, and to me, like they're already we're still talking about the Section 31 series, which is something that we've heard about for probably 20 years now. We obviously have Brave New Worlds coming, which is in a way a spin-off, obviously, let's be honest. I think this is the gateway show to all the other shows. I think this is it's going to serve its purpose after this next season. And I think at that point, they're probably going to retire it. I can't see this going any longer, even though I do agree with you, Michael. This season obviously shows a lot of promise. And they definitely could run it if they could get the numbers, but the problem is we still have a numbers problem here. And let's be honest, as much as we like or dislike this show, that isn't going to change the viewership. The viewership is the viewership, and if the viewership gets too low, it's done. And we all know that, and that's just how it works, and which is unfortunate because I feel the same way about Enterprise.
I have a theory though, Jody.
Please.
do you just not want Discovery to get past 4 seasons because then it will surpass Enterprise?
No, not at all. No.
Okay. Just wanted to be sure. Okay.
No, not at all. Enterprise had a lot of faults, tons of faults, especially Archer being the main one, I think. But it's one of many. But they had the same thing with the third season. The third season turned out to be a fantastic season for Enterprise. Fourth season was really solid, but the viewership was there. So bang, it was gone.
It was gone, but it was just starting to get good.
That's right. And I have the same problem I have with this is at this point they've lost so much viewership. Can it recover? Can it get back that? I really hope it does, because there's a lot of people that really love this show. I myself am especially some of the stuff that Michael's brought up. These are things I want to see. I would love to see 4 more years of this show if they're going to stick with what they're going with right now. But I don't think they're going to. I think this is a hodgepodge show. They keep throwing things around all over the time. It's literally like it's a 3-cup game. It's like, here's Burnham here. We got Tilly, we got, and we're just gonna mix them up every so often. Stuff like that. And it's, to me, that's not a long running show. We had consistency. All those other shows had consistency. This is a show that doesn't have that consistency. And to me anyway, I don't feel it's very consistent. Every time I see an episode of this show, I'm like, whoa, okay, that's happening now. Okay. And that's fine. And I kind of like that to a degree. But I also don't think that's if you're looking at, DS9 ran, what was it? 7 seasons?
Yep.
7 seasons. Obviously Next Gen did 7 seasons. Stuff Voyager, what did they do? 6?
7.
Was it 7 as well? Okay. So 7 is obviously the sweet spot there. But these are all consistent. They didn't do a lot of things to change any of these shows other than give us neat storylines, but they're not as serialized as this, obviously. So and I think Picard has the same problem. I think we're going to have 1 more season of Picard and we're done.
I think that third season was their most consistent season so far of the 3. And also considering how many spin-offs we already have and are getting, I would say yes, even if our numbers of viewership for Discovery have dropped a little, that it's enough for them to have enough faith in the franchise to start spinning off stuff. And so that's why it gives me even more faith that we would at least get 5 seasons, if not 7. Yeah, and also for Toronto's, for our industry's sake, as someone who works in it, I honestly want them to keep going.
I don't disagree at all.
I'm in the game here, man.
I think you've got an X factor. Go ahead.
You go ahead. All right.
Well, I think the X factor here.
Kevin goes.
Kevin goes. Yep.
Thanks, Dave. I really like the world that they've built. Even though I'm not super big on the characters, and I think there are a lot of problems with this show, but the world that they've built, if they do a 4th season really well, there's a lot of meat there. There's a lot that they can do, a lot of really great stuff they can do, and I'm really optimistic. I'm really hopeful for this 4th season. I think they're going in the right direction. I think that like Kurtzman might be good at the world building, just not so much with the stories.
Yeah.
Mike, your thought?
I think the X factor here, and maybe what they ran into a little bit of trouble with using Enterprise as an example, is we don't have to worry about syndication anymore. So if you could literally, if this is truly a reboot, you can pick up 13 episodes. If you want to binge it, you can be done in a weekend. You can catch it online. You don't have to worry about getting back into it after missing it for a while. You can pretty much just sign on to whatever provider you're on and catch an episode. So
yeah,
there is a bit of a different landscape with that.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I will say that this 3rd season, I think, did a lot to win back fans like myself, who grew up watching the Next Gen era, and the Next Gen DS9, Voyager specifically, maybe, because I think the retconning with the Klingons and a lot of the stuff didn't sit well with people. The show tried a lot of interesting things early on, but it didn't work out. They had all this backing from Netflix in its first season. Like Netflix International, I think, paid for the whole first season to be made. And so, yes, it was going to be like this big show that they were going to springboard all these spin-offs of, and they still have carried that through, but they've been trying to sort of like do damage control since season 1 because the reaction from the existing fan base was mixed at best. So it's sort of like how do you kind of bring unity? It's almost like those parallel to the post-elections that we're living in. How do you bring unity of this in this era after there's been so much polarization in the community? I think you just start making better stories, avoiding these things that are going to antagonize people like me, maybe who are sticklers for canon or for, what's come before or everything like that, but still make things that's accessible to new audiences.
I want a good story. That's what I want. I just want a good story.
I think we all do.
And absolutely. And that's the reason why we're tuning in, right? And season 3 has shown me that they have the potential. They can definitely show me a good story. The key is can we keep it running? And the problem that I have is it as much as I keep sounding like a broken record here, guys, it's ratings. It's ratings still make up a good part of this problem, and the fact is the ratings are not good on this show. Going in, the average viewership they had per episode was less than 1 million at one point. Like that's massively bad for any Star Trek franchise. That's disaster waiting to happen. Now, the only thing going for us is the fact that syndication isn't something that, as Mike said, is something that isn't as important anymore. And that allows us a little bit more leeway with that. Oh, my light just turned off. That was awesome. But I guess I'm going to have to be dark for the rest of the episode. Yeah, no, it's my light. The battery died. But anyway, that's fine. I just think the reason why I make the statement of the fact that I think that the next season is the last one is going to be based on the ratings. I really hope the third season has really brought more people back in. They haven't released the ratings yet for this, so we don't know. For all we know, they're up 4 million viewership, and that would be fantastic. And the only downside to having these digital platforms that we're releasing on is they can really get a very accurate representation of what's going on with viewership, because viewership, all they have to do is say this is how many people streamed the full episode, all that stuff. They know right away, and that's the reason why Netflix pulled out. Netflix pulled out automatically because of that. So the first season obviously was a bit of a flop. Second season didn't do much better from what I understand, based on the ratings that I've seen. The third season, however, I think they have done better. There's more buzz going on. So I really do hope that they go further. And as Michael said, we have so much potential here now. They've really opened up the doors here. So there's a lot of really cool things we can visit now, which is going to be great. So hopefully they can, but I'm being more realistic here, and the realistic thing thinks that I think we're on near the end at this point.
Yeah, I want to be conscious of time. I know we're well past 2 hours now, I think, and we are getting late. So I know we do have to wrap this up
Dave,
pretty soon.
One question: Can we just round table here? Favorite character?
Yeah, that's where I wanted to go next, actually. So great. So, and there was a whole bunch of great recurring characters that we didn't even really talk about. Maybe notably for me was Kovic, as played by David Cronenberg.
Very cool.
How interesting he was in this series. Kevin, did you pick up on that David Cronenberg was in this show?
I did not.
He was the guy in the glasses and the tie who was like interrogating Giorgio.
Okay. Yeah.
The director of The Fly and other movies.
Yeah, I know who he is.
And that weird Crash movie.
That was him. That one.
There's 2 Crash movies. Yeah,
not the bad one.
The good one.
The good one. The good one. Okay.
The Fly. He made The Fly.
He made The Fly though, and that's a great movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Mike, who was your favorite character that stood out this season for you?
It's a tough one. I'm going to go with Admiral Vance.
He was great. I loved Admiral
Solid
Vance.
choice.
Much better than Admiral Cornwall.
Turning it around for admirals, for all of the admirals that came before. He didn't have anything crazy jumping out of his mouth. He wasn't a secret spy. No.
Tomorrow, I'm actually playing the best admiral in Starfleet, in my opinion.
Well, you're playing a captain, actually, though.
Well, in this
Mirror
instance,
Captain Forrest.
Mirror Captain,
yes.
But Forrest as an admiral is a fantastic character. But anyway,
from Enterprise. Kevin, what character stood out for you the most? You know, like you're just top of mind.
I think my favorite character was Saru. How he became, he really stepped into that captain role. I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah.
Jody, and did you give one yet?
Not yet, but I'm definitely on the Vance bandwagon. I think he's a great character. I love how he's portrayed. I love the actor who plays him. I've always been a fan of him. I unfortunately cannot pronounce his name to save my life, so I'm not going to try. But him and probably Saru would be the two that I would definitely be gravitating. I don't know which one I like better. I don't think we got to see as good of a progression with Saru as I would like to have seen, but it was definitely on pace. It was getting there. So I think if I had to pick between the two, Vance would definitely be my solid pick, but definitely runner up for Saru.
Adam, did you want to give your thought?
I'm going to give two. Best actor in this. I think I'm going to take the character I really like. I did like the development of Saru into the leader. I like the leader. I like the captain. I think that was a good evolution. And everybody else on this, I was sad to see him go, but I do think he's not gone. And I really did like the villain Osira. I thought she was she
was fun.
Different characters, and she was the negotiator. She was the badass. She was also a leader, a different kind, but
the only problem I had with her, Adam, was the fact that when they introduced her, you kind of got the impression that they wanted you to think that she was the enemy of the Federation, but really she was only the enemy of Discovery. I never felt there was really that much of a threat with her to the Federation, just a threat to the immediate people that we know, right? So that's the only thing that bothered me about that character, but I agree with you. A very fun character. Out of all the characters, that was the most fun character, I think, out of all of them.
The episode that for me was when she was at the table with Vance, though. That dialogue between the two of them,
awesome,
great.
Yeah, very good,
excellent.
Michael. Sorry, Michael. Did you do you have a favorite character or
it's always
or performance
for me?
It's always been Saru for you.
Season 1.
Maybe the new characters, the people who were new for the season. Was anyone special or
I enjoyed watching Book.
Okay, and we didn't really. Yeah, we kind of went on a tangent once we talked about Book.
I kind of liked his acting in Supergirl when I first saw him, and then for him to bring kind of that swag that he had over here, and then instead of being kind of like a bad person, he's like now this essentially a Jedi. I really like it.
Yeah, kind of,
yeah, for sure.
And I like the reoccurring. She's a queen. The cat.
Yep.
He's a cat.
I just he's so charismatic, and I feel like he's a good addition to the cast, and he doesn't overstay his welcome, and when he's here, like he's just not overused.
They gotta get rid of his ship, though.
You don't like it?
You don't like it?
It's not that I don't like the ship. It's the fact that it's another bloody ship in the show, and they need to focus on the goddamn Discovery. That's what this show is. And the thing that bothers me about it is they constantly, every time they get a chance, that somebody's taking that fucking ship and doing something with it. It's like,
it moves, it morphs.
His ship at this point should be like the captain's yacht. Like you don't use it. It's just there.
It doesn't have a name, which I don't like.
It's essentially their shuttle at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like their Delta Flyer.
And that kind of bothers me. I never liked the Delta Flyer idea either, but
I had no problem with it.
I just thought it was just it was to give Paris something to do. Like that's really what I thought it was all about. But anyway, but yeah, no, it's I think Book to your point, Michael. I think Book is a great character. And the actor who plays him, which I don't remember his name, but the actor who plays him, he's like a Shakespearean actor to begin with. So he really brings like everything to the scene that he's in, which I think
David Ajala. He's from England.
Yeah, very awesome actor, and I've only seen him in limited stuff, but he's awesome.
No, I'd say that he is far. Well, he kind of replaced Tyler / Vaughn in terms of this place in the cast, in terms of the love interest of Michael Byrne. I think he's an improvement, quite frankly. And so, but that's a whole bunch of things. Like, and I just to keep going, like, I think that there were like characters. I liked almost all of these characters, or at least I liked what the actors were trying to do. I think that the show was very well performed, but there's a few that I thought were not as well written. I think that there was a bad guy by the name of what was his name? Zara. I like to call it as Frostbite. He was the guy who like the parasitic ice that got my hand.
Can we talk about that for 1 second? I love the parasitic ice thing.
I
thought that was really cool. Yeah, that was such a neat thing to see. Like it was just, I don't think we've ever seen anything like that in Star Trek that I remember. But I'm sure.
Day After Tomorrow, yeah.
Day After Tomorrow for sure. Yeah, but yeah, good point. Yeah, actually, I totally forgot about that movie. But anyway, but yeah, no, I thought that was an awesome episode. Just to see the fact that they're slowly being encased, and it's the silent enemy type thing, right? Which I just love. So.
Yeah, but I think my favorite character, especially a new character for the season, was Adira. I really enjoyed that episode, Forget Me Not, which was the episode where they went to Trill and they kind of they did everything. And especially that there's the one scene where Adira is like in the pool and all of the past hosts come at them and like they start interact. I was like, that was kind of a real powerful moment, like in this season for me. And,
reminded me of Minority Report.
Yeah, it was. It was just like this surreal thing, but it was kind of just a new, interesting way to approach the Trill. And so I was like, okay, I kind of see where they're going now. They're taking what's come before and make it even more cinematic, even. So that's what I think that Discovery tried to do.
A special call out to the Guardian of Forever as
Guardian of
yes, neat thing. Obviously, fan service. Neat thing.
Great choice for an actor for the actor to play.
Very cool actor to play for it. Yeah,
pulled it off.
There was a lot of speculation here on this podcast because we didn't know who he was between part 1 and part 2 for a whole week, right? Okay. So we kept thinking, is he Q? Is he some kind of he's got to be somebody we know. It was what we kind of felt like, and did we get a prediction? I can't remember.
We didn't get that one.
No, we didn't. It wasn't.
That would have been a hard one to call, I think.
I had no idea that was going to be the Guardian. I was totally shocked.
Nobody
would make that a person.
I loved it.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. I loved it. So did I.
As far as fan service, they pulled that off.
For sure. Yeah, they did a good job on that one.
I am the fan, and thank you. That's that was good.
Yeah, that was that. I got goosebumps in that moment. Like, how could you not? What about? Was there anything else? Like, what?
Jet Reno.
What about Sukal?
Nah.
What about?
Can we find out the panel? The least liked character out of everybody on the panel.
Oh, that's a good one.
Can we do that quickly?
Yes. Yeah. You're or the character that just did nothing for you at all. Maybe if you don't dislike them, but I talked about Frostbite. I think mine is Frostbite.
Frostbite. All right.
Mine is Stamets. I can't stand him.
Oh, I might change it to Stamets. Yeah, Stamets.
I think he progressed more in this season.
He did,
so,
and I hope they soften him up.
I can't hate him as much as I should.
But they need to do more with him.
Yeah.
Like just that whole thing of where he was like, "We came to the future for you."
To be quite honest, out of everybody on the panel, the one I really want to know is Adam. I want to know who Adam hates on this show.
Hates. God.
Yeah. What's the worst character out of everybody?
Michael doesn't dislike anybody, but
because Adam's pretty positive for the most part.
Give me a minute.
Yeah. Let's put Michael on the spot. Michael, who's the worst?
I don't know if I have a worst. I just didn't like that Andorian guy who with his I felt bad for him with the antennas cut off.
Oh, really?
Like he really didn't do much, and I was kind of sad that he didn't do much, but then because they didn't have him do much, he was basically not really, he didn't do anything for me.
Well, you saw once he tried to do something that he just got killed.
Yeah, pretty much. It was more of the writing. I was just like, guys, really? You just introduce this guy, and you make him a sympathetic, like you make people feel for him, and then it does nothing, and then dies. So,
Yeah.
Jody,
Worst death.
it's a hard question, and I don't really have one I hated, but I don't like.
Well, just like not necessarily.
No. I'm going to finish this. I don't like the way they took Tilly. I like Tilly in the first 3 or 4 episodes, and it was bothering me. She should not be command. I know she wants it. In season 2, she was running around the ship trying to train for it.
Burnham shouldn't be in command either at the end of this.
No, and I just I want to like her, but I don't, and so I'm getting annoyed. All right, I'm not gonna. Yeah.
No, that's a valid point though.
Yeah, and I also think that they might put a one of the guys on, like one of the people from the future as their first officer. Why not introduce somebody new from the
a whole new character?
Yeah,
maybe Admiral Vance is getting bored of hanging around. Wants to go out on a little bit of sightseeing,
right? That we've seen come, So
I'd have to disagree with you, Adam, though, because I think I think that is where I think Tilly's ultimate role is excellent.
I know you do, and I'm not disagreeing. I just don't like it.
Yeah, I get it.
No, that's
Jody.
That's a freaking thing. Well, we all know what my main one's going to be, which is obviously Burnham. I still don't like Burnham. You know what? You can tell me she can progress, blah blah blah, and yes, I think she is progressing a bit. I still don't like the character. I really haven't liked her through most of the series. There has been some points where I really do like her though. There's been some decisions that she's made that I thought were pretty interesting, but her and probably the girl with the weird eye that had the PTSD. I don't see any use for her in this show. I don't know why she's here. She's just kind of always in the background, and once in a while she says something. It's to me, she's if you're gonna give that character like that, like let's get her a little bit more. So maybe we'll see more of her in the next season. Maybe that's what they're kind of leading up to show maybe a trauma thing that's going to continue to happen with her, or maybe she learns some things or something, or gets a little bit higher up. But sorry.
Well, I'm just like what you're going on with Kayla Detmer's character makes me want to ask Michael a question. Michael, the character of Kayla Detmer, the one with the implant, is played by a Canadian actress, and is part of what I affectionately like to call the B team, this bridge crew that's made up of all Canadian actors that the production treats differently than they do the rest of the cast in terms of they give them how many lines they'll give them, what kind of storylines they'll give them. They're not even real. It's almost like they're less real to the producers of the show somehow.
Because if you remember in the first season, I don't even think you got most of their names. They were essentially nameless.
That's true.
Crew members who just sat there and did stuff on the bridge. But now in season 3 is where you are now finally seeing the development of the B team into actual full-fledged characters. And it's not just Detmer, it's everyone on that team that has basically equal amounts of story development, story time, screen time, on all of that in different ways. So I think that what you're probably going to see is And also there was a lot of team building with the B team. They really, I know we all talk about the cohesion issue and how everyone's, because you have like Michael Burnham and Saru as a kind of like a unit, and Tilly as well in a way. Tilly goes between the B team and the command.
The bridge.
I call
She's
them the
almost like a
command.
liaison. Yeah.
Then you have the engineering team, right? Which is like the whole the family unit storyline.
Right. That's like Adira, Jet Reno. That's
Right.
that's Culver and well, Culver's not an engineer, but he's kind of always hanging around with them.
Yeah, but what I'm seeing here is that they're forming a crew in this season, and the B team is very important to that because you need to show that they can work as a unit, and they have, especially in the last 3 episodes. You see just how well they work as a unit.
But you saw that whole scene where they had the dinner together. They all had the dinner.
Oh yeah, no, of course. I'm just saying.
So you're right. They came to the future for her.
This is, I think, something you're going to see moving forward in terms of where this series is going, especially now that Burnham is their captain, right? Mm-hmm. You might not have the jumping back and forth of. You might actually see a more cohesive unit, at least on the bridge. So you'll have engineering and the bridge, right?
Here's my question then to the panel, which is: do we have too many characters?
No, I don't think so. Myself, I just don't think they've developed them properly.
Or do we not have enough story for the characters?
We have a bunch of new characters, and they've been trying to develop them. They've removed a bunch of characters. So, I mean, if the crew moving forward is what we have, hopefully they won't add too many and then force a removal of more people, you know?
Well, they just brought this like Aurelio character in, as played by Buddy there, the one who's been I'm sorry, I forget his name right now. Kenneth Mitchell.
Yeah, they did bring in a new one.
Yeah, but he was the guy in the wheelchair near the end of season 3.
But I guess my point is, do we need to keep bringing in more characters when we haven't even developed the ones we have?
Well, I think you're right. I think that's a fair point. I think that they haven't done enough. I think that there's some secondary recurring characters like Burnham's mother, who I do not need to see again.
Oh, yeah.
She's my least favorite character. There you go.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. That's my least favorite as well.
You know what? Okay, now that you've mentioned that, I'm like,
I forgot about her. Yeah.
Me too. I tried to forget about her too, but I'm like, oh yeah, Gabrielle Burnham was in this season as a member of the Quat Malot for some reason.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
listen, guys. I think that Michael Chan should join the B crew as well.
I agree.
Thank you.
I agree. I would love to see that, and then I hope it runs, 10 seasons.
For 7 seasons.
Yeah, it's.
I just say I was on this podcast and they kept calling you guys the B team, but I was.
Yeah, you got to go down there and maybe cause some shit.
Go down there and elevate them to the A team.
Yeah, I'm here to make you the A team.
But it's actually the EH team, so it's the.
But I'd be happy with being a spaceship janitor in a silver suit if that ended up being what I was.
Wouldn't that be nice if that did happen? Wink,
okay, I think everyone gave their answers to most hated.
I'm going to throw one out there, and it's more, there wasn't a lot of character development for a few characters. I was not a big fan of Burnham's mother in this, but I was really disappointed in the AI. I don't think we got enough
of the sphere data.
Beginning.
Oh, the sphere data stuff, yeah.
So that, to me, there's a lot of potential there. They were teasing it all the way through, and then we got
for sure.
We got some robots at the end that basically sacrificed themselves.
Yeah. But then they brought them back to life, so nothing really was sacrificed.
That's true. That's true. So maybe
it was sad for a few minutes.
And that's kind of the theme that I have that's one of the biggest problems that I have with this is consequences. There doesn't seem to be a lot of them in the show, and that bothers me as well.
Yeah, there's definitely issues for sure.
Every show has issues. Yeah.
But there's good stuff too, baby. So
I wouldn't disagree.
I think there's lots of here. There's lots of good stuff.
I didn't stop after the 4th.
We've had a mostly positive over 2-hour conversation about it. Obviously, there's something here.
Yeah, we would be like, I don't know, it was boring, or because we know when we ran out of topic on those, maybe some of those Picard podcasts in particular, that it wasn't a great episode. So anyway, thanks so much to everybody on tonight, to our guests Kevin, Mike, and Jody, and with myself and
Let's see if I can get a light on here for a minute.
Michael,
There
of
we go.
course, and Adam, who did this whole season with me. We're joined with this crew, and coming in with you guys, Mike, for being on episode 12 and here tonight. It's been a lot of fun. I'm so glad I did it, because I was really on the fence if I was even going to come back to this show, but I said, you know what, you gotta, even if it's bad, you gotta.
Well, I am thankful that you and Adam definitely both swayed me into giving it another try, and I don't regret watching the last season. I think this season has been pretty good and been entertaining for the most part. I still am a little bit bleak on the future of this show, but hopefully I'll be proven wrong. I really hope I am.
I'm glad you pulled me back in, Dave.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm glad it all worked out. Okay, well, I want to thank
Dave, one more thing. Thank you very much for hosting this. Really enjoyed it, and we'll see.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Okay, well, thank you guys all so much. Let's we're just gonna come off all off video here. I'm gonna come back. Thanks so much, and we're gonna get out of here because it's been 2.5 hours almost. And what do I need to plug? Oh yeah, we'll be back tomorrow night. Guess what, guys? I have all the sounds done. They're done. So we are going to go on tomorrow night, and we're going to be doing Star Trek Radio Theater. I just have to hide my from the feed just to bring this in. We are going to be doing Star Trek Enterprises in a Mirror Darkly. Michael Chan, you're going to be playing Commander Archer.
Yay.
Jody's going to be playing Captain Max Forrest. Kevin's playing Major Malcolm Reed. I'm playing Slar the Gorn. I'm playing a bunch of admirals. We're doing all Mirror Universe episodes to start our radio theater. I said this last week or whatever too, but we actually are doing it tomorrow night. So Friday night, January 22nd, 2021. Okay. So, and then we do Deep Space Nine on when do we do that? Tuesday. And we do Wednesdays. We do original series. Adam and Jody and my brother and Ashley. So, sorry, that's. I'm getting late. I can't
It's your dad you're missing there, but that's fine.
That's not a podcast at all.
No, that's not even a podcast.
I'm down with this podcast, though. Let's work on it.
All right. So thanks so much. Until next time, live long and podcast. I'll do it all Navarre style.
I probably could have lived without that.